Yan Su looked at Lu Feng, who was wearing a white coat and he had some documents in his hand. "Where am I?" Yan Su asked him directly. Lu Feng looked at her for a few seconds, then replied, "At my research center." Yan Su frowned while asking, "Why?" Lu Feng didn't reply. He simply checked her pulse, wrote something on the documents. Afterwards, he injected a medicine. Yan Su winced in sharp pain. Still, she noticed Lu Feng's gentle behavior. He didn't retort at her like last time. Lu Feng asked, "Can you remember what happened last night?" Yan Su tried to recall. However, she couldn't remember anything after she got drunk. "I cannot," she answered. Lu Feng said, "Just take some rest. Your friends are coming soon to spend some time with you, Ot." Yan Su asked, "Spend some time? Can't I leave?" Lu Feng said, "Not until the drug is completely gone from your body." Yan Su asked in shock, "Drug? What drug?" Lu Feng replied patiently, "Last night you were drugged by your boyfriend." Yan Su was dumbfounded. "Boyfriend? What boyfriend?" she thought in her mind. Lu Feng lightly lectured her, "Don't randomly choose a boyfriend, just because I teased you. Find a real man next time." His heart felt heavy as he said it. Yan Su said, "I don't have a boyfriend." She said it in a oh-so-innocent way. It was Lu Feng's time to be dumbfounded. "Curse that Mu Feng," he retorted in his head. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 213, Your Shining Night. Chapter 213, Your Shining Night. Xi Ying and Hua Lan came to the Lu Research Center. They saw Yan Su was sitting on the bed and watching television. Before they could ask anything, Yan Su exclaimed, "Guys! What happened at the party?" Xi Ying shook her head and replied, "We left after you did. We don't know anything. I called Feng, but he didn't reply. Oh, another thing, you sent a kicking emoji to Feng from my mobile. He said that he wanted to have a match with you." Yan Su coughed hard. Cough. Cough. "I understand." Hua Lan looked around and asked, "Where is your shining knight?" Yan Su frowned at her. She asked, "What are you talking about?" Hua Lan said, "It is normal that you don't remember, but this is what happened." Then, she told her two friends that how Yan Su's got drunk and then how Richard tried to take advantages of her. However, Lu Feng came to rescue Yan Su and kicked Richard in a place where he can never act like a man in his life again and took her away in front of everyone who was present. Yan Su took 2 minutes to understand the whole thing. She stuttered, Is that right?" Her voice trailed off. Hua Lan nodded and replied, "You have no idea how scary he was at that time." She looked at a random magazine and said, "He let you stay in one of the best rooms. He even called us at night, so that we don't have to worry. He really cares about you." Hua Lan got up and said, "I want to look around. You can take rest." Afterward, she left the room. Hua Lan walked in the corridor and went to the last room. Later, she knocked the room. "Come in," Lu Feng said from inside in a calm tone. Hua Lan entered the room. "Excuse my intrusion." Lu Feng looked at the glasses girl and exclaimed, "Oh. It's you. How is she?" Hua Lan asked straightforwardly. Without permission, she sat on a chair. Lu Feng had already got used to her behavior. He smiled and said, "She is better than last night. Still, there is some drug is left in her stomach. After it is all gone, she will be ready to leave." Hua Lan nodded. After that she said, "She looks comfortable staying here. Most of the time, she doesn't like boring places." Lu Feng gave a sad smile and said, "That I know." He offered her a cup of mint tea and he sipped his own cup. "Why didn't you tell her last night's event?" Hua Lan asked after she sipped the mint tea and felt refreshed. It's good, she thought. Lu Feng was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, I have started to consider you as my friend, Ms. Lin. Let me tell you a story. It is about my childhood. According to Lu Feng and Yan Su's history, little Lu Feng liked Yan Su since childhood. With friends, they would play together. 10 years ago, when she turned 15, Lu Feng proposed her. Yan Su asked for a match between her and Lu Feng. As a scholar, Lu Feng wasn't good at fighting. Therefore, he lost to Yan Su within a few moves. However, his humiliation didn't end there. Yan Su played with him even after that and beat him to make him nearly faint. Yan Su rejected him after she had done her playing. Who do you think you are? You dare to confess to me when you are my family rival? You stupid boy who only knows how to read. How can you protect your woman if you are so weak? And you still call yourself a man? She laughed aloud. That day, Lu Feng had no energy left in him to get up. In the rain, he was still in Jin Villa's lawn. At night, Mu Liang and Mu Feng flew away from Italy. Watching the bloody body of their childhood friend, their hearts were filled with rage. Mu Liang carefully carried injured Lu Feng. He was nearly breathing and had a high fever. That moment, Yan Su came to look at her prey and saw her two cousins. Mu Liang, in those days, maintained a low key and thus, no one was afraid of him. And so was Yan Su. She bickered at them and asked for a match. She was out of control and no one could manage her. Mu Feng's eyes were as vicious as a snake's eyes. That was the first time he laid his hand on a girl. If she was a boy, he would beat her up to death. He held himself back and in 1 minute, Yan Su was lost. She could not believe it. She accused Mu Feng of cheating and asked for another match. Slap! Mu Feng's slap made Yan Su fall on the ground. Her cheek was cut by the sudden force and bled. Yan Su's two brothers, her parents, bodyguards, no one dared to stop Mu Feng. They had tried to send Lu Feng to the hospital long ago, but Yan Su didn't let them. She felt like power was everything in the world. Mu Feng grabbed her hair and pulled her close to him. He warned her coldly, I dare you to hurt people like this way again. Our family doesn't need an unmanageable animal. If you want to act like an animal, then listen to your master. Then he threw her on the ground. The two brothers took their friend out of the place by helicopter and sent him to the research center. When he was admitted, Mu Liang took out all the money which were invested in Jin Corporation. When Jin Corporation was close to bankruptcy, Mr. Jin went to Italy to complain. Elder Lu threw a slap on him and said, Childish act? You made your daughter a wild creature and you dare to complain? In which way do you think it is a child play? How can a normal human girl beat her childhood friend to death? Get lost. If I was Mu Feng, I would have killed my cousin. It was the first time Elder Lu took Mu Feng's side. Mr. Jin had no choice to go to Mu Liang in the hospital. Bring her to the hospital, make her kneel down in front of Lu Feng's room without sleep or food, until he wakes up. I'll consider then. Mu Liang said coldly. If you find any errors, ads pop-up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 214, You are back. Chapter 214, You are back. Take her to the hospital, make her kneel down in front of Lu Feng's room without sleep nor food, after he wakes up. I'll consider it. Mu Liang said coldly. Mr. Jin was dumbfounded at his request. He could not say a word. He only then realized how ruthless Mu Liang was to those who hurt his close ones. Soon, Mr. Jin went to his mansion and requested Yan Su to do as Mu Liang told. A proud and arrogant girl like Yan Su, who was pampered from the day she was born, refused to do so. No one could make her kneel in front of Lu Feng's hospital room. 2 days later, Lu Feng's condition became a little better after the fever went down. He was sent to his family villa. That time, Jin Corporation almost became bankrupt. Afterwards, Yan Su's elder brother gave her a picture which was sent by Mu Liang. Yan Su looked at it and saw a pale boy who was lying on the hospital bed. He was being supported by an oxygen mask. The boy was none other than Lu Feng. On the back side of the photo was written in red marker, "Apologize." A single word made Yan Su shiver. That day, for the first time, she experienced fear. The next day, Yan Su went to the Lu family villa and knelt down on the lawn. Lu family wanted to let her stay inside the villa, but Mu Liang stopped them. Mrs. Lu was clearly upset with Yan Su, however, she wasn't hostile to her. Mrs. Lu was a wise woman and she tried to forgive this 15-year-old wild girl. She regularly sent food to Yan Su. She ordered the servant to set an umbrella for her so that she didn't get wet. Yan Su's heart was filled with guilt for the first time and tears welled up in her eyes. She knelt day and night without rest for 20 days. Until she collapsed. When she woke up, she was in the guest house of the Lu family villa. She looked around and her eyes grew bigger as she saw who was sitting next to her. Lu Feng was still pale and weak. Still, he was guarding her. He was thinking if she needed anything. Yan Su opened her mouth, "Why?" But her voice was choked. She almost cried. Lu Feng smiled weakly and said, "Wild or polite, whatever you are you. That won't change. And I love you just the way you are." He stood up and said, "You shouldn't have done that. You caught a fever, you know. Your family must be worried. I already woke up, so you don't have to kneel down anymore. I ordered the chauffeur to take you wherever you want to go." Then he left the room. Yan Su wasn't listening to his last words. In her ears, Lu Feng's voice was ringing, "Wild or polite, whatever you are you. That won't change. And I love you just the way you are." However, Lu Feng didn't know that his two sentences had made Yan Su change forever and fall in love with him unconsciously. So since that day, you guys are still after each other's throats. Hua Lan commented as she sipped on the mint tea. Lu Feng sighed heavily and said, "Maybe confessing to her was the biggest mistake I had made in my life." Hua Lan shook her head and said, "I don't think so. I think it was for the best. She learned a good lesson and became a good person." She caressed her cheek and mumbled, "I never imagined that Hua Lan's husband was that good. She is lucky to have him." Lu Feng heard her and sighed. He said, "They are lucky." Hua Lan said, "So are you." Lu Feng smiled at her and said, "I never had the chance to thank you for yesterday." He said. Hua Lan looked at him as she remembered something. She said, "Oh. Right. If you want to thank me, send me your mint tea to me every month. I like it very much." Lu Feng was dumbfounded. Hua Lan looked at him and asked, "You created this herbal mint tea, right?" Lu Feng was perplexed. He meekly asked, "How do you?" His voice trailed off. Hua Lan pointed out of his balcony and replied, "I saw your small garden." "But every month." Lu Feng mumbled. "Isn't it too much to give her my creation every month?" He thought. Hua Lan could read him clearly. He was like an open book to her. "Mint tea is expensive. I can get it freely from him," she thought. "I will help you make Yan Su fall in love with you." Hua Lan tried to negotiate. She liked the mint tea and she wanted to have it. "Deal." Lu Feng immediately said. This was how Hua Lan sold one of her closest friends for special mint tea. Mu Feng went to the Mu mansion at noon and was praised by his elder brother. Mu Feng felt like he was flying in the air. The three of them had lunch together while they conversed at the same time. Mu Liang said, "Hua Lan will stay at home for a couple of days. She will go back to campus when everything calms down." I will go to Germany to check out our branch office. Feng, take care of Hua Lan. Feng saluted and said, absolutely. Afterwards, he looked at Mu Lan and said, Sister Lan Lan, we will visit our workplace, okay? You will love Big Brother's office. Mu Lan looked at Mu Liang and asked, may I? Mu Liang stopped eating when she asked him. He bent down a little and kissed her cheek. Then said, of course. Mu Lan's face immediately turned red. Feng looked at the couple with a pitiful gaze and thought of Qiying. He sighed and shook his head. Just then, Feng's cell phone rang. He answered the call. Hello, Louise. What? You are back. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 215, Where is your girlfriend? Chapter 215, Where is your girlfriend? Xiying looked at his stoic friend in awe. She couldn't believe what her best friend had just told. Why you sold your best friend, just for MNT? Xiying stammered. Hua Lan shrugged and said, what is the harm? Lu Feng is a good guy. You missed his expression when he kicked that Richard who was taking advantage of her. Moreover, they both like each other. All they need is just a little push. Xiying's face flushed. She said, Hua Lan, you are too good. Hua Lan shook her head and complained, I'm not. You guys have made me nosy. Xiying smiled and hugged her friend and then laughed. Feng was in a happy mood. He drove to a cafe which was across Louise's apartment. He waited for her inside the cafeteria. They had the best coffee in the city. It was Feng's favorite. A blue limited edition Volkswagen R23 stopped beside Louise's apartment and a beautiful French girl got off the car. She was the famous interior designer, Louise Fontaine, Feng's friend from school. Louise strode towards the cafe with her long white legs, and as soon as she entered, her eyes caught Feng's handsome face. Feng was sitting in the corner watching the flower garden. The sunlight was kissing his face, making him look extra gorgeous. Louise's eyes sparkled at the scene she watched. She came forward and tried to hug Feng. Feng jumped up in shock and moved away, making Louise's smile freeze on her lips. Is this how you treat your friend? She complained. Her blonde hair was shining in the sunlight. Feng asked her back. And what do you think you are doing? Hugging a man? I'm a man who has a family, wife. I don't want my wife to catch me in adultery. Louise sat on the chair across Feng's while giving a teasing smile and said, oh, come on. What era are we living in? Your wife won't be that petty. Feng said, it's not she. I'm the one who doesn't want to make her insecure. Louise lifted her right eyebrow. She asked in surprise, is that so? Why is that? She leaned towards Feng and asked, is it because I'm so beautiful, and is that the reason she would feel insecure? Feng let out a laugh. Ah ha ha. You should have asked this question in front of my wife. She would be speechless. He imagined Xiying's blank face. Her expression was so cute that he was already missing her. Louise frowned as if she was upset because of his behavior. She looked around and said, I told you on the phone that I wanted to meet your beloved girlfriend in the cafe. Where is she? Her name is Lan, right? Feng was sweating a little and said, yes, she is coming in few minutes. Just then, sorry, I'm late. A girl said cheerfully. Louise looked at the front door and her eyes were stuck at the girl. The girl was in her 20s. Her height was average. Her skin was flawless with a pinkish-white color. Her hair was dark brown like a hazel tree. She had a pair of clear black eyes. Her nose was slender. Her lips were rosy and thick. She had a slim figure. She was wearing blue jeans, a white sleeveless top with a pink sweater, and a pair of sorrel caribou boots. She looked very attractive even though she hadn't worn any jewelry or makeup. The moment Louise looked at her, she knew that she had lost to her. Though she had seen Lan in Anne's birthday party, she couldn't take a proper look at her. Now in the broad daylight, Lan looked like a celestial being. She looked familiar to Louise. Where have I seen her? Oh, I remember. She is the one I saw with Mu Feng in Anne's birthday party. She is Lan, Louise thought. Yesterday, in Mu Mansion, while the three of them were having breakfast, Louise had called Mu Feng. He answered the call. Hello, Louise. What? You are back? Louise answered, yes, I am back and found out that you have got yourself a girlfriend. Mu Feng laughed and said nothing. Louise continued, hey, I'm free tomorrow, let's meet. Tell Long to come with you. It's been a while since we have hung out together. Mu Feng scratched his head and said, Long cannot join us. He is going to Germany tomorrow. Louise hid her smile and thought, of course I know that. However, she sighed and said, too bad. Then you can come and meet me in the Maison Sakei. Mu Feng's right eyebrow rose up. Maison Sakei was one of the top romantic hotels in France. Mu Feng had never dared to take Qiying in there. And why should he agree to Louise's request? Mu Feng smiled politely and said, Louise, there is a problem. I would be busy in the office tomorrow. Then how about today evening? In the evening, you must be free, right? Louise cut him off immediately. Mu Feng replied, I have a date with my girlfriend in the evening. Louise. Mu Feng offered, how about we both go out on a date? I will meet you at 30 minutes past 3 at the cafe across your apartment. Oh, and I will bring my girlfriend with me. Louise unwillingly said, fine. I will be waiting. She hung up. However, Qiying was busy in the hospital. She was with Shuelin and Yan Su. Mu Feng was in dilemma. He mumbled, if I go alone, Louise will definitely drag me to a romantic hotel, I'm sure of it. Mu Lan said, I have nothing to do in this evening. I will accompany you and pretend as your girlfriend. It'll be so much fun at your wedding when she'll discover that I'm not your bride. I definitely would not want to miss that expression on her face then, but... Before Mu Liang could reject the offer, Mu Feng jumped in front of Mu Lan and said, Sister Lan Lan, you are the best of the best. Mu Lan giggled. Seeing her happy face, Mu Liang only smiled and said nothing. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 216 Pervert. Chapter 216 Pervert. The girl walked where Mu Feng and Louise were sitting. Mu Feng smiled broadly as he stood up and hugged that girl. Louise felt the pain in her heart. She felt as if someone had stabbed her in the heart. Her heart was bleeding and she was in immense pain. Later, Mu Feng introduced the girl to Louise. Louise, this is Lan about whom you were talking. Dear, this is Louise. She is my school friend with whom Zhu Long and I studied. Mu Lan said, oh, Assistant Zhu Long. Hello Louise, it's a pleasure meeting you. Louise smiled and said, likewise. Throughout the time they were chatting, Louise's heart was burning. She smiled and talked, but she was not at all in the mood. She acted well. The next day, the sun wasn't that bright and it was a gloomy day. Gray-black clouds covered the sky. As the cold breeze blew in the room, Yan Su felt a chill down her body and it made her shiver. Yan Su jumped off the bed and closed the windows. She opened the door of her room and looked across the corridor. Lu Research Center was as busy as it was ever. The people in white dress were everywhere. Yan Su looked at the people with curiosity. The doctors were discussing about some medical research and the nurses were busy with their work. Everyone was working diligently. Even when they were talking, they lowered their voice. There wasn't any sound while people were walking in the corridor or while working. It was almost a pin-drop silence. Yan Su admired Lu Feng's workplace. She strode in the corridor like everyone else and asked a nurse whispering, "Where is Dr. Lu Feng?" The nurse looked at Yan Su and noticed that she was wearing the patient's clothes. She looked at the door from where Yan Su had come. The nurse smiled at Yan Su and replied, "You must be Dr. Lu's relative. He took great care of you for the last 2 days. Dr. Lu is on the 5th floor. He is in the emergency operations center. Do you want to go there?" Yan Su asked, "Which floor is this?" The nurse replied politely, "It is the 36th floor. This is the VIP section. Not many people can come here." Yan Su nodded as she understood. She thought, "Oh, I see. That's why this floor is so quiet." She told the nurse, "I want to go to the emergency operations section." The nurse pointed out in the north direction and said, "The capsule lift is that way, at the end of the corridor." Yan Su smiled and said, "Thank you." The nurse smiled in return and said, "I wish I could come with you personally, but I am busy right now." Yan Su replied, "It's okay. Thank you for your time." The nurse said, "Oh, another thing. Do you have an ID card? Without it you won't have an access to use the elevator." Yan Su put her left hand on the pocket and found an ID card. She asked the nurse, "Is this what you are talking about?" The nurse nodded and bade Yan Su goodbye. People here are very courteous and nice. Yan Su thought. She recalled the time when she was in their research center. It was nothing like this environment. Moreover, the people there only think about profit and nothing else. They were even rude with the lower status workers. However, here the environment was polar opposite. Everyone was polite and respectful to each other. It seemed that they really cared about their patients. No wonder Lu Corporation is on the top in the medical field. As expected of Dr. Lu Feng. A smile touched her lips. Soon she reached the 5th floor and found Lu Feng, who was walking out of the operation room. Looking at Yan Su, Lu Feng came to her and asked, "What's wrong? Why are you here?" His gentle voice made Yan Su's heart race faster. Her face turned slightly red and said, "I was bored." Lu Feng checked her pulse and said, "I cannot accompany you. You can go wherever you want to. Just be careful." He stroked her hair. Yan Su flinched at his touch. To hide her embarrassment, she bickered, "Where do you think you are touching, you pervert?" Lu Feng was totally speechless. Yan Su's heart was beating so fast that she thought that her heart was about to leave her rib cage. Her face was beet red. She turned to the exit and made a HMF sound with her closed mouth. Then she walked that way, completely disregarding Lu Feng. In an instant, Lu Feng grabbed her right hand and pulled her to him. Yan Su was stunned at the sudden attack. She could only let out a gasp. When Yan Su fell in his solid chest, Lu Feng pushed her in the wall. Yan Su could barely understand what was going on. She glared at him and wanted to yell at him. She said, "What is MMF?" Lu Feng forced his lips on her. Yan Su completely froze on the spot. Her head stopped working. Lu Feng kissed her deeply and then explored the inside of her mouth. Subconsciously, Yan Su kissed him back in the same passion. Her arms circled around him and let out a few moans. NNNH. Her moans were filled with desire. Lu Feng felt her arms around him and she was kissing him back. It made him wanting her more. His hands traveled under her shirt and Yan Su's body shivered in his touch. Lu Feng groped her bosom and Yan Su let out a loud moan as she writhed against him. There a few minutes had make out abruptly stopped when they heard a crashing sound. Startled, both of them looked at the source of the sound. It was the nurse from 36th floor who helped Yan Su. Seeing them making out made her so shocked that the documents in her hands fell on the floor. I am so sorry. I am leaving now. The nurse hurriedly took the papers and left. Both Lu Feng and Yan Su were panting heavily as their faces were red. Lu Feng moved away and said, "Now this is what a pervert does." He left with a filled heart. He heard a screen jerk and laughed a little. He recalled Hua Lan's lesson. Yan Su always wants to do hottie stuffs. You can practice with her. She will definitely fall for you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 217, Help Me, Lan dear. Chapter 217, Help Me, Lan dear. Yan Su was fuming with rage. She could not believe that Lu Feng was taking advantage of her. She gritted her teeth and stormed back to her room. She lost interest in strolling around the research center after some time. Yan Su went to her bed and closed her eyes. Immediately, she remembered the soft yet warm touch of Lu Feng's lips. Her eyes flew wide open, her heart raced and her face made no hesitation to turn red. She sat up quickly. What am I thinking? She screamed in her mind. Yan Su always focused on her health and used her wit only when she was at a match or when she was working on journalism. Therefore, she thought less about the things around her. In other words, she was more dim-witted in romance and other things compared to her friends. Yan Su had yet to fully realize that she admired Lu Feng and liked him quite a bit. She paced around her own room for 30 minutes. When Yan Su heard of footsteps pacing towards her room, she went to her bed swiftly and tugged the quilt over her. Someone knocked at her door politely. However, Yan Su didn't answer. Then, she heard the sound of the door opening and footsteps entering. Yan Su braced herself. Yan Su, are you sleeping? Lu Feng called out. Yan Su's heart raced faster. Why is he here now? She thought. Lu Feng uncovered her quilt and saw her so-called sleeping face. He stretched his hand and lovingly caressed her cheek. Yan Su's eyelashes quivered slightly. Still she pretended to be asleep. Afterwards, Lu Feng checked her pulse and gave her another injection. Before leaving, Lu Feng stroked Yan Su's hair and moved the locks away from her face. Then, he leaned down and kissed her forehead. When Lu Feng left, Yan Su touched her forehead and felt that her skin was burning where his warm lips touched. Ah! I'm going to die. She screamed in her mind. Yan Su called Mu Liang when she could not calm her heart. Yan Su, how are you feeling? Mu Liang answered her call and asked. Yan Su answered, not good. So not good. Help me, Lan dear. I cannot take it anymore. Yan Su cried out. What on earth happened? Mu Liang couldn't understand anything. Lan dear, I don't know why, but Lu Feng is acting weird. Yan Su replied. Mu Liang was dumbfounded. Weird, how? Yan Su answered, he is becoming more. Before she could complete her sentence, her face turned beet red. You understand what I mean, right? Mu Liang felt helpless. She replied, Yan Su, I seriously don't understand what you are trying to tell me. Yan Su literally pulled her own hair. She was even more agitated since she couldn't make Mu Liang understand her inner thoughts. Lan dear, listen to me. Lu Feng is kissing me and touching me anywhere he wants. Yan Su's voice quivered as she said. Mu Liang didn't know if she could believe Yan Su or not. She was silent for a few seconds and then asked, Are you sure? Do you think I'm lying? Yan Su was furious. Just a few seconds ago, he touched my face and kissed my forehead. Mu Liang sighed heavily. She said, Yan Su, it is just your forehead. What are you worried about? If it was some other time, Yan Su would tease Mu Liang till she would find out about what Mu Liang and Mu Liang did when they were alone. However, right now, her mind was occupied with Lu Feng and his passionate activities. No, not only that. He kissed me passionately in a public place. We were caught by a nurse. Yan Su said what she wanted to tell Mu Lan from the very beginning. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 218, I did enjoy it. Chapter 218, I did enjoy it. No, not only that. He kissed me passionately in a public place. We were caught by a nurse. Yan Su blurted out everything she wanted to tell Mu Lan from the very beginning. Why didn't you tell sooner? Mu Lan almost screamed with excitement. I tried to tell you. But you couldn't understand what I was trying to say in the first place. Yan Su exclaimed. Mu Lan was speechless. A moment later, she said, how is this my fault? I'm not Hua Lan who can read minds. You have to tell me clearly what happened. Okay, tell me. Who kissed whom? Yan Su told Mu Lan that she was strolling around the hospital and that Feng checked her pulse and that she suddenly called him a pervert. For calling him a pervert for no reason, Feng punished Yan Su by kissing and touching her all over her body. Mu Lan cut off Yan Su. Wait a minute. What do you mean by he touched you all over your body? Yan Su's heart raced. She answered, all over means all over. Don't ask too much. Her face turned red with shame. Mu Lan hid her laughter and said, okay, continue. Yan Su completed her recollection of their steamy exchange and finally asked Mu Lan, so what do you think? Mu Lan thought for a moment, then said, I'm working on an essay. I'll call you back. She hung up. Later, Mu Lan dialed Hua Lan's number. Hua Lan answered the call and said, what is it? Mu Lan directly asked, did you give Dr. Feng any crazy ideas? Hua Lan giggled a little and said, wow. Hua Lan, you are doing good. As expected. Your IQ is really high. Mu Lan bit her lips. She knew it. When Yan Su told her about Lu Feng's sudden change of behavior, the first person she could think of was Hua Lan. Mu Lan smiled as she told Hua Lan, you did a pretty good job. I'll help you to give more ideas to Dr. Feng and Yan Su. By the way, Yan Su called me. She said that Dr. Feng is a good kisser. Cough. 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 Hua Lan coughed hard. She never wanted to learn these sorts of things even though she was the one who was pulling the strings. Ciao. Smiling, Mu Lan hung up. Then she called Yan Su. Immediately, Yan Su answered the call. Have you completed the essay? She asked eagerly. It seemed like she was looking for some company. Mu Lan answered, yes, I did. I also thought about Dr. Feng's behavior. So what do you think? Yan Su asked eagerly. Mu Lan took a deep breath before she calmly said to Yan Su, look Yan Su, he is already in his 30s. He needs someone to help him to fulfill his desires. And judging by his actions, he must like you deeply. I mean, who loses themselves in a public place especially when he is such a gentleman? And moreover, even you wanted someone to kiss you and touch you. Don't tell me you hated his touch when he touched you all over. Yan Su instantly said, I didn't feel bad. It gave me goosebumps though. Mu Lan said, exactly. It gave you that feeling because you liked it. It only means that you like him. I don't like him at all. Yan Su exclaimed. That was fast. Mu Lan thought. She bit her lips and said, okay, I understand that you don't like him. But you like what he did. Am I right? Yan Su replied, I did enjoy it. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 219, Speak of the Devil. Chapter 219, Speak of the Devil. Mu Lan sighed inwardly. This girl. She thought. Mu Lan said calmly, if you like his touch, why don't you take advantage of it? In her heart she was thinking, please God, let it work. Let it work. Let it work. However, Yen Su was silent. She was considering Mu Lan's options. Or maybe, perhaps she saw through Mu Lan's plan. After whole 1 minute passed, Yen Su said, Lan, my dear? Mu Lan's heart was already lumped in her throat as she was nervous. She asked back, yes, Yen Su? Yen Su replied, you actually gave me a wonderful idea. If that pervert Lu Feng tries to take advantage of me, then I will just enjoy the ride. She gave a goofy smile. Ah ha ha ha. Mu Lan gave a lifeless laugh. As expected of our dimwit Yen Su. Mu Lan thought and sighed in relief. After she hung up the call, she sent a text to Hua Lan. Hua Lan saw the text and smirked devilishly. She then sent a text to Lu Feng. In the Lu Research Center, Lu Feng was writing a report on his next project. Just then his mobile chimed. Lu Feng looked at the cell phone screen. He saw that it was from Hua Lan. Hua Lan texted. Second lesson, if an opportunity comes in front of you, don't hesitate and grab it. You will find eternal peace. Lu Feng blinked a few times. Still he could not comprehend what Hua Lan meant by this text. Maybe I will ask her later. He thought. Lu Feng buried himself in work. However, his mind was flying elsewhere. Grab the opportunity. Grab the opportunity. If only he knew that she meant. Meanwhile, Mu Lan was in Mu Feng's car. They were heading towards the Mu Corporation's building. Mu Lan was wearing Veni Vidi Vici's black solid sporty Bardot fit-in flare dress, Belfia's red solid sporty jacket, Shaz Touch's black solid heeled boot and a red Zacharias woolen cap and head, and she paired all of those with a black pearl simple earrings and flame red matte lipstick. Her dark brown colored, long and loose hair was waving in the wind. She was laughing so hard at Mu Feng's jokes that her stomach hurt. Soon they reached the office. Mu Feng opened his door and came out of his car. He then went to the other side of the car and opened the door of the passenger seat. As Mu Lan came out, some of the workers who were going inside the office were looking at her stunning appearance in awe. Those who were in the lounge started whispering. Who is this beautiful woman? She came with our second master. Who do you think she is? Our second master has never brought women in his entire life. This has to be his girlfriend. All the employees of the 70-storied building got the news of Mu Feng and Mu Lan came at work together when these two were only in the lounge. Female employees wailed in agony as they got the news of their second master was single no more. The male employees sighed in relief. At last, our time has arrived. The male employees thought. However, one female employee reminded everyone, we still have our boss. We are not widows yet. The female employees nodded positively. Mu Feng took Mu Lan to the top floor where Mu Liang's room was. It was currently empty because Mu Liang was in Germany. They met Mu Liang's secretary, who was curiously waiting for the second master and the beautiful woman. Mu Feng left his sister-in-law in his elder brother's room and he went to the next room where his room was. Mu Lan looked around Mu Liang's room and somewhat missed him. Just then, her cell phone rang. She looked at the screen and thought, speak of the devil. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 220, Just think of our wedding day. Chapter 220, Just think of our wedding day. Mu Liang was in the meeting with his employees in Germany. That moment, his cell phone chimed. He checked his mobile. Hugo sent some pictures to Mu Liang. They were clear photos. Mu Liang saw Mu Lan's radiant appearance and his eyes became dark instantly. He saw that Mu Lan was in his office room and she was looking around. Her simple glance made his heart melt. He ordered his assistant Zhu Long to continue the meeting and he went out of the conference room. Then he called Mu Lan. Mu Lan looked at her cell phone and saw that Mu Liang called her. For some reason, her heart leapt with joy. She answered the call immediately. Liang, she said cheerfully. Mu Lan didn't know that Mu Liang's lips stretched upwards hearing her sweet voice. What are you doing? Mu Liang's deep voice echoed into her right ear. I'm looking around in your room. It would be better if you were here with me, then I would be able to see you working in your own office. I've never seen that before. Mu Lan said. When she said it would be better if you were here with me, Mu Liang had a strong urge to fly over, both literally and metaphorically, and hug her. He said, I'm coming back in a week. Then I'll take you there with me. You can see me as much as you want. His voice was deep, making Mu Lan blush. She said, I cannot do that. It cannot go with you. Mu Liang's eyes narrowed. He asked, why? Mu Lan answered, if I do, people will find out about our relationship. Mu Liang was silent for a while. Then he asked, do you like it when people think of you Feng's girlfriend? His voice was dangerously low. There was a hint of coldness. Mu Lan didn't catch his dark tone. She giggled and shook her head. It's not like that. Just think of our wedding day. People will think that the bride was mistakenly changed. Just think of what types of faces they will all make. Just then she realized what she said. Just think of our wedding day. The sentence echoed in Mu Liang's ears and his heart. He could feel birds was chirping. He could smell the scent of honey and flowers. Mu Lan blushed in shame. What a blabbermouth! How could I say something so shameless? She thought and wanted to dig a hole to bury her head and hide away in. To save herself, she hurriedly said, Liang, you must be very busy right now. I'm hanging up then. Take care. Bye-bye. She hung up. I'm so embarrassed. She screamed in her mind. Mu Lan spent the rest of her time in the office playing Car Race 4 to 99. She had completed level 100 in no time. At lunchtime, Mu Feng took her to the office cafeteria. Everyone looking at them enviously. Female employees were envious that their second master was taken, and male employees were envious because their second boss got himself such an attractive girlfriend. Both Mu Feng and Mu Lan had vegetable pasta and lemonade. After finishing their lunch, Mu Feng showed her the IT department and online game department. Mu Lan showed a great interest in both departments. Finally she saw Mu Feng was looking at his watch. Understanding that he was busy, she excused herself. She told Mu Feng that she wanted to visit Yen Su in the Lu Research Center. Mu Feng sent Hugo to drive Mu Lan to the research center. Mu Lan went to the VIP floor, catching everyone's attention. She saw that the door to Yen Su's room was slightly open. She smiled and went to knock the door, but her hand froze in the air. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 221, Full of Tricks. Chapter 221, Full of Tricks. Under 18 can skip today's chapter. Just wait for tomorrow. At Lu Research Center, Lu Feng headed to Yen Su's room to have lunch. He was carrying a large tray, full of delicious meal. Lu Feng looked at the sky through the window and saw that the sun was shining brightly. Within an instant, he felt refreshed. Lu Feng used his leg to open the door of Yen Su's room and entered. What did you bring? It smells good, Yen Su said as she sniffed the air. Lu Feng smiled as he saw her adorable gesture. He replied, I brought your favorite dishes. Let's have lunch together. Lu Feng put the tray down on the table and Yen Su, who was watching TV, immediately jumped out of the bed. She found out that Lu Feng brought Nicoise salad, soup à l'oignon, beef bourguignon, and flamish. They were all the top dishes of France and were quite expensive. Yen Su looked at the man who did so much for her, and in return, she had nearly hurt him to death. She could sense the feeling of guilt spread inside her heart. Lu Feng served the food and Yen Su dug in. The food inside her mouth tasted so delicious that she moaned. It's so good. Yen Su chewed the food and savored the taste on her tongue. She glanced at Lu Feng, who was silently eating and looking at her tenderly. Yen Su flushed slightly. In order to hide her embarrassment, she asked him, "How do you know about my favorite food?" Lu Feng answered her, "Did you forget about how you bragged about your favorite French dishes?" Yen Su scratched her head as she tried to remember. Then she shook her head negatively. Later, she mumbled, "Only perverts can recall something like this." Her face was slightly red. Lu Feng didn't answer her. Maybe he couldn't hear what she told. After they finished eating, Lu Feng got up and wiped his mouth in the washroom. When he came out, he saw Yen Su was already on the bed. He frowned and asked, "Don't you want to wipe your mouth?" Yen Su stretched her hands above her and in an alluring way she twisted her body. Then she answered, "Don't want to." Lu Feng exclaimed, "So dirty." Yen Su bickered back, "Only perverts say something like that." Yen Su just finished the sentence and her lips were sealed by his. She was stunned by the sudden action, but she overcame the surprise and kissed him back. Lu Feng nibbled and sucked her lips, earning a few moans from her. He shuddered and kissed her deeply. Yen Su was losing her mind. She suddenly remembered Mu Liang's advice. She had taken advantage of this situation. Yen Su circled her arms around Lu Feng and pulled him toward the bed. She opened her mouth to give him entrance. Yen Su's sudden behavior made Lu Feng's heart flutter. It wasn't his first time doing things like this. Unlike Mu Liang and Mu Feng, he had enough experience in romance. Still, his heart raced at her passionate kisses. Lu Feng wanted to withdraw before he lost control over the situation. However, he remembered Shui Lin's lesson. He had to grab the opportunity. Lu Feng had spent the entire morning in vain to decode the meaning behind Su Lin's words. And now, he realized the actual meaning behind it. He had to grab the opportunity. Warning. Lu Feng started to touch Yen Su. He felt that it wasn't enough. He groped her bosom and began to unbutton the shirt she was wearing. On Lu Feng's touch, Yen Su had butterflies in her tummy. Her body shivered as the cool air entered inside her shirt. Lu Feng took off her shirt with his experienced hand. Then, he felt her smooth skin on his palms. Immediately, he got addicted. Their lips were still locked. Lu Feng's fingers unlocked the hook of her black lace brasserie and groped her. Yen Su moaned a little louder and arched her back to get more of his touch. Lu Feng kissed her lips lightly and looked down at the woman who was panting loudly. His eyes were filled with love and lust. Yen Su trembled under his lustful gaze. She subconsciously stretched her right hand and touched his lower part, which was already hard. Yen Su said in a lascivious voice, "Give it to me. I want it." Lu Feng hardened at her words. He lost his words. He leaned down and kissed her forehead, nose, and then lips. Later, he kissed her left ear and asked, "Where did you learn this trick?" Yen Su smiled sweetly and replied, "I'm always full of tricks." Lu Feng agreed to that. He thought, yes, she has tricks. And that's why I'm deeply and madly in love with her for all these years. Lu Feng's kisses ran down to her breasts, leaving behind his mark all the while. Then he took a mouthful, earning a loud moan from her. Yen Su's mind was already flying. Her heart was pounding so fast that she thought it would rip out of her rib cage at any moment. Her hands hastily went to Lu Feng's shirt and started to unbutton. Lu Feng smiled down at her and kissed the corner of her left eye. He pinched her nipples and Yen Su writhed under him. Her hands clutched his shirt. Lu Feng momentarily stopped and helped her to take off his medical coat and shirt. Then, he went back to caressing her breasts again. Yan Su felt hot all over her body. Her moans echoed in the room. She felt an unknown urge taking over her as she rubbed her thighs. Yan Su wanted to unbuckle his belt, but her hands were trembling too much. Lu Feng understood her hesitation. But he couldn't help but tease her. He slowly took off her pajamas and spread her legs. Yan Su didn't feel shy at his action. Moreover, she spread her legs wider to give him better access. On seeing that her black lace panties was a little wet, Lu Feng's eyes darkened. He touched on the wet spot and asked Yan Su, "Do you want it?" His voice was husky and eyes full of lust. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 222, Too Busy to Talk to Anyone. Chapter 222, Too Busy to Talk to Anyone. Warning. Lu Feng touched her wet spot and asked Yan Su, "Do you want it?" His voice was husky and eyes were filled with lust. Yan Su replied with action. She circled her legs around Lu Feng's waist. Her hands were touching his muscled chest. Lu Feng didn't know if he should laugh or cry. In this situation, isn't a girl supposed to feel shy? He thought. Lu Feng didn't think of anything anymore. He directly touched her soft spot. Yan Su's eyes opened wide. She shuddered at his touch and writhed in pleasure. A loud moan escaped from her mouth at the same time. Yan Su reached her hands to unbuckle Lu Feng's belt. However, her hands couldn't reach. Because Lu Feng held her waist up as he kneeled. He took off her black lace panties and put her legs on his shoulder. It was afternoon and the room was filled with sunlight. Lu Feng could clearly see her wet spot. He leaned his mouth and began to lick. Yan Su couldn't hold back her loud moans. Her legs trembled vigorously. Her body was going crazy at his touch. Lu Feng didn't slow down even though he saw that she was losing her consciousness. Finally, Yan Su gave a scream and panted heavily. Looking down at her, Lu Feng slowly unbuckled his belt and then took off his pant and boxer. Yan Su was looking at him but her eyesight was vague and fuzzy. Lu Feng hugged Yan Su and asked her, "Are you sure you're okay with this? You won't regret it, will you?" Yan Su became a little clear-headed as she heard his questions. She cupped his handsome face and said, "What are you asking at a time like this? Do you still call yourself a man?" Her shivering made Lu Feng realize that she was nervous. Still, she was trying to take their activities to the end. Lu Feng kissed her right ear and whispered, "If we are going to do this further, from now on you are my woman. Don't forget it." Lu Feng entered her and gritted his teeth. So tight. He thought. Yan Su's face twisted in pain and she opened her mouth to take oxygen. Her eyes brimmed with tears. Lu Feng bent down and gave her light kisses on her lips. He said in a hoarse voice, "Relax your body. Or else I can't enter you. You'll get hurt." Yan Su heard half of his words, other half went over her head. Slowly her body relaxed and Lu Feng began to move. Yan Su wailed in pain. She felt that something scratched her viciously down there. She cried out. Lu Feng kissed her lips to stop her loud cry. After Yan Su's second climax, he didn't hold himself back. The more intense his movements were, the louder her moans were. "I cannot take it anymore." Realizing that Lu Feng had no interest in stopping their activities anytime soon, Yan Su said in a soft voice. Lu Feng looked down at her and asked, "Where did your mighty strength go?" Yan Su bit her lower lip and blurted out, "Pervert." Lu Feng's eyes narrowed dangerously. Instantly, he moved her over him and said, "Perverts do this type of stuff. If you want pleasure then move your waist." Yan Su almost wanted to strangle this guy to death. But she also wanted him badly. Therefore, she gritted her teeth and moved herself. 3 hours passed in a blink of an eye. Mu Lan wanted to meet her friend and went to the Lu Research Center. However, the moment she tried to knock the door, her right hand froze in the air. Immediately, she closed her eyes. She didn't want to see what was going on inside the room. But her ears were still open. Yansu complained in a soft voice, "How many times do you plan to come inside me? Isn't it already 4th time?" Lu Feng's voice was hoarse as he replied, "Compensate me for the 10 years of suffering I have gone through because of you." Harder, Yansu moaned loudly. Mu Lan lost the strength of her legs. She fell on the ground. Her face was beet red. Mu Lan closed her ears with her hands and took some deep breaths. Then she got up and, unknown to the couple inside, she closed the door soundlessly. Mu Lan walked out of the research center and called Hua Lan. "What is it?" Hua Lan answered. Mu Lan replied, "You don't have to give Lu Feng lesson anymore. Our plan succeeded. They made up." Hua Lan grinned and said, "Then we should congratulate them." Mu Lan said, "We don't have to hurry. They are too busy to talk to anyone right now." Hua Lan. Then she hung up. Mu Lan went to the nearest cafe. She was having a chocolate sundae. Just then someone asked, "Can I sit here?" Mu Lan glanced at the person. Lu Feng was on the bed, looking at the white ceiling above him. His hands were caressing the smooth skin of the woman who was in his embrace, panting softly. His heart was singing. A few minutes later, Yansu opened her mouth. "Lu Feng?" Lu Feng asked back, "What is it?" His tone was unusually soft. Yansu hugged him tightly and didn't say anything for a couple of minutes. Lu Feng waited patiently. Then, Yansu said, "I'm sorry that I hurt you back then." Her voice trembled as it was full of guilt. Lu Feng looked down at her. His eyes were full of disbelief. Yansu, that everyone knew, was very proud and arrogant. Who could have thought that she carried guilt for 10 years without anyone knowing? Lu Feng kissed her lips and said, "I'm sorry for hurting you too." Yansu buried her face in his warm chest and closed her eyes. Afterward, she said, "Don't forget to give me the pills as you gave to Inger." Lu Feng smiled at her warning and said, "Let's get married." Yansu froze in his arms in shock. The next second, she screamed, "What?" Her scream echoed in the room. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 223, 1 Condition. Chapter 223, 1 Condition. On hearing Lu Feng's words, Yansu was so astonished that she jumped out of the bed. But due to her sudden movement, she twisted her body, and the sharp pain made her to slightly hiss. Lu Feng immediately caught her by grabbing her naked waist. He said, "Don't move too much." Yansu gritted her teeth and said, "Pervert." Lu Feng smiled and leaned down to kiss her lips. Then he said, "Now that's the right accusation." Yansu laid on his chest as she felt weak and tired. Lu Feng caressed her naked skin and said, "It has been a long time since I have been this peaceful. It feels great." Yansu pouted and said, "It's obvious for you to feel it that way. You drilled me 8 times. Lu Feng smirked and replied back, "If you hadn't lost your consciousness, then I would keep going on till the 10th time. Yansu narrowed her eyes. "Thank goodness that I lost my conscience. Or else I would be drilled to death." Lu Feng let out a loud laughter and said, "That's what you get for making me wait for you all these years." He hugged her tightly and said, "And now I have you." Yansu smiled sweetly and asked, "Why are you in such a hurry to marry me? Is it because of what we did just now?" "It's fine, you know. Just give me the herbal medicine you gave to Ing." Lu Feng stroked her hair while saying, "I've been dreaming of this day since I fell for you. Now that I tasted you, how can I get a hold of myself? I need you by my side always." He paused and then continued, "It is not about the thing we did. I don't want to give you the herbal medicine. It is not harmful either. But then, it's just that I wanted to have a child with you from a long time. After RS*X, you have 90% chances of getting pregnant. Please grant me my wish." Yan Su suddenly felt guilty. I really made it harder for him. He was nurturing a dream to have a family with me from a long time. And back then, I asked him to get a pregnancy test kit for myself. How would he have felt that time? As she thought about it, tears ran down her cheeks. Lu Feng could feel that her cheeks were wet. Instantly, he made her to lie down on the bed and looked at her with worry written all over his face. His heart panicked at her tears. "What's wrong? Are you in pain? I'll immediately bring in ointment for you. Wait here." His voice was caring, making her cry harder. Lu Feng tried to get up but his arm was caught by Yan Su. He looked at her and Yan Su said, "Don't go." "I'm not in pain," she sniffed. Lu Feng looked at her and stooped to get a closer look at her. Then, he asked her, "Don't you want to have children with me? Or is it that you don't want to marry me?" His voice was extra soft. Even though his heart was bleeding, he smiled at her and said, "It's okay, if you don't want to. Just tell me and I will understand. Why are you crying like a baby?" Lu Feng kissed her tears away and said in a melodic tone, "Pain, pain, go away. Don't come back ever again. Little Yan Su wants to play. Pain, pain, go away." He did it exactly how he did it in their childhood. This way, Yan Su would always calm down. Today was no exception either. Yan Su stopped sobbing as she thought, "What is this idiot thinking? He wants my pain to go away. But why doesn't he think of his pain? Is he always like this?" She recalled the times when Lu Feng recovered from her beatings. He immediately called Mu Liang to help Yan Su's family business. Mu Liang was reluctant, but he still kept his words. It was only Lu Feng who actually saved Jin Corporation that day when Yan Su ruined everything. "He is actually thinking of me always, isn't he?" Yan Su gave a faint smile and hugged the man. "He gave too much without my knowledge." Lu Feng, who was still naked, looked at the delicate woman. He tenderly rubbed her cheeks and asked her, "What's wrong?" Yan Su kissed his thin lips and said, "Let's get married." Lu Feng froze on the spot. His eyes were wide open. He couldn't believe what he just heard. His heart raced. He asked her, "What did you just say?" His voice trembled as he spoke. Yan Su saw his anxiety and asked back, "What's with this reaction? Don't tell me that you were bluffing when you said that you wanted to marry me? I just replied to your proposal." Lu Feng caressed her face with his trembling hands and asked, "Do you want to marry me?" Yan Su nodded and replied, "Yes, I want to marry you." Lu Feng asked her again, "Do you want to have my child?" Yan Su nodded and replied back, "Yes, I want to have your child." Lu Feng asked further to be sure that she wasn't joking, "Are you sure?" Yan Su further nodded and said, "Yes, I am absolutely sure." Her gaze was firm, which made Lu Feng believe in her. All of a sudden, she said, "But I have a condition." Lu Feng steeled his heart and said, "I'll give you anything you want." Yan Su said, "Even if we get married, I don't want our family businesses to collaborate." Yan Su realized today when she was strolling at the research center. Lu Corporation was wholeheartedly for the people. Its purpose was to help the sick people. However, Zheng Corporation only had business motives. It was clearly looking for more profits. If Yan Su said Lu Feng and she were to get married, Zheng family would not let the opportunity slip away from their hands. However, Yan Su didn't want it. She wanted to give Lu Feng the peace and love he deserved all these years. She couldn't afford to make him suffer anymore. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 224, Let Me Keep It a Secret. Chapter 224, Let Me Keep It a Secret. Lu Feng smiled at her condition. His heart was finally at ease. He kissed her nose and said, "As long as you want it that way, I'm happy to oblige." Yan Su sneered as she said, "Just because I'm marrying you, that doesn't mean that I love you. So don't be so overjoyed." Lu Feng was utterly speechless. A few minutes later, he asked, "What did you just say? Then why do you want to marry me?" His heart was about to tear apart. Yan Su replied, "I'm only marrying you because you are juicy and say *y in bed." Lu Feng was dumbstruck. His eyes narrowed. Has she forgotten that we both are naked? He thought. How on earth did I fall for this stupid woman? He slowly approached her and uncovered the quilt. "If you like my performance in bed, you had to tell me sooner, don't you think so, Yan Su?" His voice was dangerously deep. It alerted Yan Su. "What are you up to?" She frowned and asked. She tried to cover her body, but Lu Feng's strong arms stopped her. He asked, "What do you think?" Before she could say anything, her lips were covered by his hungry lips. When Yan Su started kissing him back with the same passion, Lu Feng's hands traveled all over her body boldly. Yet again, their frictions and moans filled the entire room in no time. When Yan Su woke up, the sky had already bid goodbye. Her room was filled with bright white light of the bulb. She looked at her body. When she had fainted because of head stimulations, Lu Feng had wiped her body with a wet towel, and he had also put a new maxi on her. Yan Su smiled at his gentleness, still she didn't forget to curse him pervert in her mind. It was too much. She looked at the man who was sitting next to her. When Lu Feng glanced at her, Yan Su rolled her eyes. He asked her with amusement, "Does it hurt?" It didn't need a brain to understand what he meant by it. Yan Su's face was red with fury. Since she was too tired to bicker, she meekly said, "Am I your human S*X machine?" Lu Feng tried to be innocent and asked her back, "What are you saying?" "It was you who said that I was juicy and say *y in bed. As I was very pleased at your compliment, I gave you a reward." Lu Feng was simply enjoying her vulnerable side. Yan Su was annoyed. She gritted her teeth and cursed him in her heart. Lu Feng asked her with curiosity, "When you played with my heart all these years, I didn't mind at all. But why did you have a sudden change of heart and seduced me? Saying so lusciously that you wanted me." Yan Su replied with pride. "I have a wise friend. She told me that if I liked your touch, the next time you flirt with me, I had to take advantage of that situation." The moment she said it, Hua Lan's stoic face came into Lu Feng's mind. He asked her, "That wise friend of yours, is it Hua Lan?" Yan Su shook her head and said, "No, it is Lan dear." When he was so sure about the answer, as Mu Lan's name came from her mouth, Lu Feng froze. Did Yan Su say that it was Sweet Bunny? How could it be? For some reason, he had his doubts. Lu Feng caressed her smooth skin and asked her, "When did she give you such an extraordinary idea?" "I don't remember her coming over to see you." Yan Su replied, "I had called her today in the morning and she gave me this idea." She didn't try to think much on what was in his mind. Lu Feng's brain was working like a roller coaster now, just like when he was thinking of creating a new medicine in the morning, when he also got a lesson from Hua Lan. He frowned and asked further, "What was the time?" Yan Su was falling asleep again. She heard him and answered meekly, "Around 9. Her voice slowly faded away. Lu Feng checked his cell phone and saw that Hua Lan texted him around 9 too. Lu Feng suddenly wanted to laugh. He looked down at the sleepy woman and thought in his mind, "Stupid woman, you were sold out to me by your two trusted friends and here you are sleeping so soundly. But I'm not going to tell you. What if you get furious and leave me alone? Let me keep it as a secret." To hide his laughter, Lu Feng repeatedly kissed all over her face. Mu Liang was having an ice cream when someone called out. She looked up at the person and saw that it was none other than Louise Fontaine. Mu Lan smiled at her and said, "Hi Louise, what brings you here? Please, have a seat." Louise smiled back and replied, "My office is close to this cafe. I come here quite often." She took her seat and sat down and continued, "And don't be so formal around me. After all, Feng and me are childhood friends. I know him very well. He won't like it if you, who became his girlfriend recently, be so formal around his longtime friend. Don't you think so?" Mu Lan almost choked as she tried to hide her smile. She sensed her provocation as clear as the day. "Am I smelling vinegar?" Yesterday, if Qiying wasn't busy to accompany Yan Su, she would be with Mu Feng to meet Louise. Mu Lan thanked Qiying's luck. If Qiying were to confront Louise, she would be withered like a flower. She was too fragile. On the contrary, Mu Lan was Mu Feng's trustworthy sister. She could care less about Louise's feelings for Mu Feng. Let's see how far this pretty miss can go. Mu Lan's eyes filled with mischief as she made up a plan. Updated by novel.com. She was going to have lots of fun in these 2 days of break from her classes. In 2 days without class, she was going to have some fun. Mu Lan smiled like a naughty kid in a playground. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 225, Honey Trap. Chapter 225, Honey Trap. Louise, for how long have you known Feng? Mu Lan asked sweetly. Louise Fontaine was startled by Mu Lan's sudden change of behavior. She pondered over for some time before saying, "Since childhood. We would play together at Zhu Long's parental house whenever Feng would come to France. Maybe you didn't know that Feng was born in Italy and he lived there. It's only in the recent times that he's moved here to France." Louise tried to show off before Mu Lan that she was better informed than her about Mu Feng. Little did she know that Mu Feng had already told Mu Lan about Mu family's history. Mu Lan looked at Louise with awe. She said, "You really know each other from your childhood. I feel envious." She pouted. Her expression made Louise feel much better. She smiled triumphantly and said, "Don't be. After all, you're Feng's girlfriend." Her girlfriend phrase sounded more like a mistress or a concubine. Mu Lan's eyes glittered hearing Louise's comment. She replied shyly, "You are right. The time we spend together is neither like your childhood or business collaboration. Feng is very passionate when it comes to love." Mu Lan acted like a newlywed bride who was sharing her wedding night story with her friends. Mu Lan prayed inwardly, "Forgive me, brother Feng." The moment she said about Mu Feng being a passionate lover, Louise's face turned pale. Mu Lan pretended not to see the reaction Louise had. She continued, "Feng's touch is like a volcano and he always says sweet words." Louise slightly trembled. She knew that Mu Feng never let women touch his body, no matter how flirtatious he was. Even Louise wouldn't dare to touch him. Once when she did touch him in their high school, his eyes immediately had turned cold. She could never forget that experience. However, Mu Lan was too deep in thinking of her lover right now to notice it. Mu Lan kept saying, "Feng never takes another woman to his room. So you might not know how extinguished his taste is. When I first went to his room, I couldn't help praising his taste. Then he said that he had got his room designed only for me." Mu Lan giggled as she said. Louise opened her mouth to say something but nothing came out. She had heard from their friends that Mu Feng had a luxurious bar in his west wing. He had complete control over his world and no women were allowed to go to the Mu mansion except the family members and maids. As Mu Feng's childhood friend, Louise had the permission to visit Mu mansion. Though she had an urge to go to the third floor to Mu Feng's room, she wasn't allowed to even take a single step towards the stairs. Nevertheless, Louise was happy and proud that she had the right to visit Mu mansion, which was every girl's dream in Paris. However, on hearing Mu Lan about her going to Mu Feng's room, it shook Louise greatly. Mu Lan continued, "A week ago, I almost thought that I was pregnant. I was really terrified. I have my exams in a few days. How can I have morning sickness? Then Dr. Lu Feng checked and reassured me that I wasn't pregnant. I really have to persuade him to use protection." Mu Lan's ears were turning red. What am I saying? She was feeling a bit embarrassed. Though Mu Lan had said a lot, Louise's ears shut down after she heard the single word pregnant. It was a huge blow to her. At first, Louise couldn't hear the sounds around her. Her head was spinning. She could neither feel or sense anything. A few minutes later, her head started thinking again. Pregnant. She said that she was almost pregnant. Then, it means that they already did it. As Louise absent-mindedly thought about it, the cup from her hand fell on the floor. Crash! The sudden breaking sound of the cup caught many people's attention. They looked at where Mu Lan and Louise Fontaine were sitting. Louise's chain of thoughts broke as she heard the sound as well. At first, she was puzzled. Realizing that she broke the cup, Louise apologized to the owner and paid her bill. Louise was about to get up from the chair. Mu Lan suddenly sniffed in the air and asked her, "Louise, do you smell a burnt odor?" "I'm getting a burning odor of barbecue. It smells delicious though." What she meant was Louise's heart was burning with jealousy. Louise almost choked on her own saliva. She clearly understood what Mu Lan meant. She gritted her teeth and answered negatively. Later, she clumsily said goodbye to Mu Lan and then left hurriedly. Louise's arrogance, which she showed when she first came into the cafe, was completely destroyed. Her face was frighteningly pale when she was leaving. From the moment the cup fell onto the floor, Mu Lan had no change in her reaction. She simply looked at Louise's reaction. While looking at how her arrogant face turned pale, Mu Lan enjoyed every second of it. After Louise left, Mu Lan slowly finished her ice cream and ordered a pastry. At that time, she couldn't control her laughter anymore and she burst out laughing. Startled, many customers looked at her. But she didn't pay any heed to them. Mu Lan laughed until her stomach hurt. She fell for my honey trap. Oh! Just looking at her expression makes me delighted, she thought. Mu Lan wished she could record what just happened. But she wouldn't dare do that. It might make someone else drink vinegar. She took out her cell phone and texted someone, "I miss you. Hurry home." Mu Lan didn't have to wait too long. 2 minutes later, she got a reply. "I miss you the most. I'll be coming home in 4 days." Mu Lan's eyes nearly popped out of her sockets. Is he serious? His trip is for a week. How come can he shorten the trip and hurry home? Mu Lan wanted to break her head with her own hands because of her stupidity. She clearly understood. If it wasn't for her "I miss you" text, he wouldn't do that. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 226, Working on it. Chapter 226, Working on it. Mu Lan rubbed her tummy, which was hurting due to her excessive laughter. But now, she was feeling guilty too. After thinking about it for a while, she came up with a plan. Mu Lan sent a text again, "If you neglect your work, I won't send you a text like, 'I miss you.'" It didn't even take 2 minutes before she got a reply from Mu Liang. He answered, "Okay, Your Highness, I'll be back in a week. Just stay away from that inferior designer till I come back." Mu Lan frowned. Did he mean Louise Fontaine by inferior designer? It must be her. But why? Her thoughts wandered around. She chewed down the pastry and went home. The next day, Yan Su woke up with a sorry body. She opened her eyes and looked around. It was early in the morning. The windows were open. Cool breeze blew inside the room. Yan Su felt cold. Lu Feng was nowhere in the room. Yan Su gritted her teeth. Oh, he already left after he had his fill. She thought as she fumed with rage. She wanted to get up, but the moment she twisted her body a little, her whole body trembled due to the pain, especially the lower part of her body. She cried in pain. Yan Su was physically fit and she had lots of training in martial arts. She also had a lot of strength. However, yesterday's activity was simply different from her previous training. Her outer parts of the body was completely alright. But the pain of the inner part was blowing off her mind. The pain was unbearable and it shook her whole body. The pain was so much that she even forgot to curse Lu Feng. When Lu Feng entered the room with a tray full of food, he saw her twisting in the bed. Good morning, Yan Su. How is the pain in your body? Lu Feng asked as he put down the tray and looked at her. For some reason, Yan Su glared at him viciously. Lu Feng hid his smile. He checked her pulse and said, I brought an ointment for you. Let me apply it before we start eating. Controlling his lust, Lu Feng applied the medicine on her painful body parts. Yan Su enjoyed his touch as she grinned. After they finished eating corn soup, vegetable pasta and ice cream, Yan Su let out a satisfied groan. Lu Feng looked at the clock and injected her a liquid medicine. Then he said, This is the last of your medicine. You don't need to take it anymore. Just stay away from wine, whiskey and any other sort of alcohol for a year. Take rest for another 2 days. Also, you can leave tomorrow. Yan Su complained, I love wine. How am I supposed to live without it? Lu Feng looked at her and gave her a loving smile. He tenderly brushed her hair with his fingers and replied, Just imagine a child inside your belly. I know you can do it. Yan Su laughed and said, As long as you don't drill me to death, I will happily stay away from red wine. Lu Feng almost choked to death. Does she know what she is talking about? Let's see, who can resist this for an entire year? He wondered. Lu Feng smiled at her and replied, Sure. As long as you are healthy, I will happily oblige. He took out a bottle of olive oil and continued, Let me massage your body. Then he started to take off her maxi dress. Since childhood, Yan Su liked body massage. So she happily nodded. But, after 5 minutes, she realized that how stupid she was. Lu Feng was really good at body massage. Yan Su didn't know where he learned that. Soon, she started moaning. She couldn't help herself under his excellent handiwork. Lu Feng knew how to trick Yan Su. After he massaged her shoulders, his hands went south. When his hands went to her bosom, he pinched her lightly. Yan Su shivered and let out a luscious moan. She wanted to bite her tongue off, but Lu Feng groped her. It made her writhe in pleasure. 30 minutes later, Yan Su was soaked in sweat. She was panting heavily. Her face was red and tears formed in her eyes. Lu Feng washed his hands. He looked at his woman who was lying on the bed. The sunlight fell on her naked body, making her attractive. Lust filled Lu Feng's eyes. He quickly made her put on the dress. As he tried to leave, Yan Su grabbed his hand. Lu Feng looked at his left hand where Yan Su grabbed him. His wrist, which was captured by the beautiful woman, was burning. Lu Feng glanced at her darkly, and asked with a hoarse voice, What is it? Yan Su, who was still panting, replied, Don't leave. Lu Feng let her hand go and said, I have works to do. Stay here like a good girl. I will visit you during the lunchtime. Yan Su clutched his shirt and made him look at her again. She softly said, I want you. Lu Feng froze on the spot. If there was a man who resisted his woman's invitation, that man was an impotent. Lu Feng was very manly. He knew how to pleasure his woman. Some time later, Lu Feng caressed her naked body and asked, "Who just said that she didn't want her beloved to drill her?" Yan Su, who was quietly enjoying his touch, replied, "Past is a history. Tomorrow is a mystery. Today is a gift. We should forget what was in the past and enjoy the present." Lu Feng laughed aloud and kissed her lips. Then he said, "You are right." He was quiet for a while, then said, "Let's go to your parents' house after you recover." Yan Su's heart raced as she looked at him. She asked, "What about your parents?" Lu Feng answered, "I already talked to them. They said that as long as we can give them grandchildren, they have nothing to say." Yan Su giggled and nodded. "We will give them children soon." Lu Feng answered, "I already told them that we were working on it." He said it like a matter of fact. Yan Su looked at him with utter shock. She was left speechless. How could I get such a shameless person like him? She wondered. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 227, I Want Her. Chapter 227, I Want Her. Louise was walking beside the Seine River. She was frustrated. She was thinking about Mu Lan's words. Whenever she remembered the word pregnant, she would stomp her legs on the road and would cry out. Her immature action would make others wonder that she was a famous interior designer. Louise saw a boat. It was empty. She hired the entire boat. She downed the red wine glasses one after another. In the end, her head was literally on the table. Her half-open eyes were staring at the beautiful sight of Paris. She was so drunk that they looked unfamiliar to her. Louise recalled Mu Lan's happy face, shy expression, and dark excited eyes. She gritted her teeth. Who does she think she is? What right does she have to be able to get Feng's affection? She came out of nowhere and took my place, which I have been planning to take over from a long time. I hate her. I hate her. Louise wanted to scream, but she didn't. Her eyes were red with fury and tears formed in her eyes due to the rage. Her face had ashened and her nose and ears were red. All her plans to be the perfect woman of Mu Feng, to be Mu family's second mistress, to be able to become the richest woman, and to be able to get one of the most handsome men were all doomed by one simple girl. For what? Because of her beautiful face. Louise could not handle it. Her pride could not handle it. Louise hated her. She hated Mu Lan to the core. Well, look who it is. Isn't it the famous interior designer Louise Fontaine? Why is she in such a miserable state? Don't tell me, it is because of jealousy? A voice said. The tone was full of mockery. Louise looked at the person to bicker, but not a single word came out of her mouth. Her eyes were wide open. At last, she could finally say, "You." Mu Lan was walking on the streets, enjoying the view. Her face had a slight smirk. Did she think that she could be with my brother Feng? As long as I am alive, no one can break the wonderful relation between my brother Feng and my best friending. Mu Lan thought to herself. She recalled the previous incident and Louise's pale face. Mu Lan laughed aloud. That was fun. She gave a toothy grin. The chilly weather suddenly felt great. She glanced up to the sky and felt the sunlight. She felt warm. Mu Lan was walking beside a vacant alley. She was absent-mindedly walking, therefore, she didn't notice the abnormality. All of a sudden, a strong arm covered her mouth and with another hand took her further away inside the alley. Mu Lan tried to struggle, but that person was stronger than her. No matter how much she wriggled, she couldn't break free. Louise looked at the person as he was a stranger. She said, "You." Her tongue was tied. The man smirked. He asked, "What? Tongue-tied? Can't believe that I'm here?" Louise became alert. She asked back, "Why are you here? Aren't you supposed to?" "I came today early in the morning. I wanted to meet you. So I went to your workplace. I saw you going out and I chased you," the man said. Louise tried to recall today's incidents. She was at work. Then she went to the cafeteria and met Mu Liang. Louise looked at the man with her pale face. "Does it mean that he saw me with her?" She asked him, "Why are you here?" "I already hired the whole entire boat to myself." The man sat across her chair and took an empty glass beside Louise's wine glass. Then he poured the red wine and drank the entire glass. Then he glanced at the pale woman in front of him, said, "I saw you with that girl in the cafe. I heard everything that you guys were talking." Louise's face became sour. She felt disgusted and told him, "Haven't you been taught not to eavesdrop? Where is your manner?" The man laughed loudly. He said, "Wasn't I well-mannered enough not to let my friends attack you years ago when you were drunk?" "You are very ungrateful, Louise." Louise's face became deathly pale. She questioned him back with a quivering tone, "What do you want?" The man replied, "What if I tell you that I want you? I mean, the reason you pretended to be a pure lass is not valid anymore. Feng is taken." Louise's face turned red. The man wasn't sure whether it was that she was embarrassed or angry. He looked at her chest area and smirked. "They have grown." His voice was flirtatious. Louise stood up and screamed, "You are a disgrace to your family, you son of a b*************. The man's expression didn't change even for the slightest. He said, "That's true. I'm a son of a b***********. Actually, I found out that every woman in this world is a b**********. Louise was standing still. She didn't want to talk to him anymore. She lost her patience. She pointed out to the door and said, "Leave. Let me live in peace." The man said, "Are you sure that you will be able to find peace? I mean, when Feng gets married to that woman." He didn't continue and looked at Louise's change of expression. Louise trembled vigorously when she imagined Feng's marriage with that girl Lan. "I can't let them get married. I cannot accept her. Not her. It has to be me. It has to be me," she thought. Her expression was vicious. The man smirked as he saw that his plan was working successfully. He said, "Join me." Louise looked at him with confusion. The man said, "Join me to get that woman. And then, you can have Feng to yourself." Louise finally understood his plan. Her eyes shone. The man said, "Bring her to me. I want that woman." His eyes flashed in the sunlight. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 228, Where Mine? Chapter 228, Where Mine? Mu Liang was struggling hard. But the person who had grabbed her was stronger than her. She couldn't find any other option left. Hence she bit the palm of the person who was covering her mouth. The person immediately removed his hand. Mu Liang had now got a chance to scream. However, before she could let out a scream, her lips were sealed by the other person's lips. That person's hands were on her back, holding her tightly. At first, Mu Liang was terrified. Her eyes were closed. She forgot to resist. She was so nervous that her body was shaking. Suddenly, she found the person's scent quite familiar. Feeling stunned, she slowly opened her eyes and saw the oh-so-familiar face. Within an instant, Mu Liang relaxed. Her hands, which were trying to wriggle free of that person's grip a moment ago, had now encircled his neck. The kiss was deep. That person was nibbling and sucking her lower lip. It was like he was devouring her. Mu Lan also started to nibble his upper lip. Soon, they changed angles and started kissing each other even more passionately. Mu Lan almost stopped breathing. Due to the lack of oxygen, Mu Lan opened her mouth to breathe. She even forgot that she had a nose to breath. This gave the other person a chance to enter his tongue, and it twirled around her soft tongue. Mu Lan moaned at their intimacy. Her whole body became hot. Even the cold weather couldn't touch her skin. Tears formed in her eyes. She was feeling a little fuzzy. After a long time, that person left her lips. Their tongues were connected with a single thread of saliva. Both of them were panting. Mu Lan's legs gave out and she almost fell on the floor. However, that person caught her with his right hand well in time and hugged her close to his solid chest. Mu Lan's head was leaning on his warm chest. She could hear his crazy heartbeats. She felt surprised to notice that both of their hearts were beating at the same tempo. That man held her chin gently with his left hand and made her look at him. He saw her moist eyes, red face, and swollen lips. He rubbed her lips a few times. Then he leaned to kiss her softly. Mu Lan felt butterflies in her stomach and shivered slightly. She mumbled, "How?" That man asked her while giving her butterfly kisses. "How?" "Menen, come, you, ha, here." In between kisses and moans, Mu Lan asked that man. That person didn't stop kissing her, yet he answered, "You missed me." Then, he kissed her neck. Mu Lan felt ticklish and moved closer to him. She moaned, Liang. Liang, she didn't realize when he loosened her jacket. After a while, when Mu Lan was almost losing conscious, Mu Liang let her go. Even then Mu Lan was still airy-headed. She couldn't feel anything. Mu Liang stroked her hair and asked her, "What did you tell to that interior designer?" Mu Lan couldn't understand the situation. She asked, "Louise?" Mu Liang answered, Mu Lan was in no position to think about it. So she asked, "What did I say?" Mu Liang sighed and replied, "Feng, hot touch, pregnancy." "Do you remember now?" Now, Mu Lan understood. She asked him, "Did you spy on me?" Mu Liang felt no regret or guilt as he replied, "I was worried about you." Mu Lan questioned again, "Are you mad?" Mu Liang replied again with patience, "I am." Yet, he didn't show his anger. Mu Lan said innocently, "I did it for brother Feng and my best friend. I was just pretending, you know that." Her face was so cute that Mu Liang couldn't help but kiss her again. However, by now Mu Lan had regained her composure. Hence she moved away from his face. She asked, "How come you came in so quickly?" Mu Liang couldn't kiss her lips, therefore he moved his lips on to the other parts of her face. He answered in brief, "My jet." Mu Lan moved her face because she was sensitive when it came to her ears. So he took his jet plane to come here. She could hardly think. She asked him further, "Weren't you in the middle of a meeting?" Mu Liang never lied. So he couldn't lie to her either. He replied, Zhu Long took care of the meeting. Don't worry. Mu Lan really felt guilty. She thought a mere text from her would in no way get him here since he was in Germany. But then no, she had misjudged his capacities. "I'm sorry," Mu Lan said pitifully. Mu Liang stopped kissing her neck and looked down at her. He asked, "Why?" "I texted you." Mu Lan was feeling guilty.